Hello, family. Anistara Maka here. And I recently shared a huge portion of my awakening story and realized that there was pieces that I left out. And so here I am. I wanted to share a little bit more with you and really just drop into the vibration of what I've gone through in my life and can speak to some of you and inspire you or move you, touch you in some way, because I honestly believe that so many people, especially women, as we're awakening, we're being made wrong. We're being made wrong for who we are. We're being made wrong for shining our light, and we're being shut down in any way possible. And so I want to speak to that in the sense that we are the mothers of the new earth. We are here to do this work. We are here to will manifest what it is that we believe is going to help and assist humanity for 7 generations to come, and not only to survive, but to thrive. And so I'm here to tell you, as somebody who is odd and strange and weird to some people and outspoken to other people and confronting to some people, is because I really feel like I'm moving through the work of my life, and a huge portion of that is speaking my truth and being vulnerable and being authentic. And that scares some people. You know, a lot of people, we're still hiding behind the masks. We're being asked to be quiet and silenced. And, so many of us lived through lifetimes of being persecuted and even burned at the stake. And so I'm here to say that that is changing. It's not going to happen any longer. We are here to stand in our power as human beings. And as a woman, I'm speaking for feminine bodied entities as well, that we have a voice, and that our light and our voice is important to bring into the world. It is so key right now to be the mothers of this new earth. For eons, we have allowed the masculine to rule over us, to quiet us, and God bless the divine masculine and so much of the linear structural hierarchy paradigm, pyramids of power, just like it's the old way. It's the old way, and that old way is collapsing. It's dissolving. And so I wanted to share some more from my heart. And so I wanted to start with the fact that when I was younger, I was very different. I definitely didn't get into team sports. I was a part of a team because I was in gymnastics, but it was single. It's like the just single performances. And so when I was an ice skater as well, I just skated on my own, and that was my expression, my creative expression. And so I really felt like I wasn't a part of a team quite yet. And that started to come out when I was in junior high, and I would perform. I was always a part of a performing arts school or some kind of honors program, performing arts magnet, math science magnets. I went to like higher education schools, in the sense that it's interesting because I didn't walk to school. I would like get on a bus and like go somewhere else to go to these schools that you have to audition to get into or apply to get into. And so it was a very different experience than regular school. And so each semester I was a part of either a musical or a play or the dance performance. And I found myself in the role of leadership, where I would be a choreographer. I would choreograph dances in my head, and then I would hold an audition, and people would audition, and then I'd pull the dancers that resonated with that piece of work, and then I would teach them, and then we would perform it on stage. And so I really got to learn at an early age how to lead, how to guide, how to um, envision something in my mind and then create it and then present it to the community. And so I didn't even really register or think of it in that way until this very moment. So this is part of my sharing, is that I'm learning about myself as well. So thank you for that. And when that occurred, like when I was in those leadership roles, I had to really learn how to be diplomatic. And I'm still learning to this day. We're always going to be learning when we're in leadership roles how to meet people where they want to be met. And so recently, a friend of mine was like, a lot of people want to know who Anistara is. Like, who are you? What do you do? Like, how did you get to where you're at now in your life? And so this is piece of the puzzle, is learning how to speak to people and be with them and guide them and lead them into creating something together, into the co-creation experience. And so that was kind of my training as a young teenager and moving into high school and then into college. Was I always was a part of these performances where I was a leader in the leadership role in some way. And so some people get put off by that. A lot of people would retract, or I was kind of unapproachable sometimes because sometimes it didn't always come out great. Sometimes I would yell at a dancer because they were doing something that I had gone over like 10 times. And so I had to learn to like really soften that and do my best to meet people where they're at. And so even here it is, 30 years later, I'm still learning that lesson, and it's a huge piece for me. So as I grew up, I really enjoyed being a part of creative expression in one way or another, whether it was through dance or singing or acting, or, I've just really, really enjoyed it. It was mostly dance. It was mostly movement. I enjoyed moving my body. And I found that when I did, I was literally moving the energy in the unified field. And I want to say mastering the movement of energy. Just like somebody who's very trained in the martial arts, dance does that as well. I was trained in traditional ballet and jazz and African dance and classic. Just all of them's not coming to mind right now, but a lot of different forms of dance, and was a part of artist conservatories. And so they were like specialized programs where teenagers in high school would go to a local college and study dance with the college students. And so I got to be a part of a lot of those programs that elevated us into performing at parades, performing on stage for concerts. I got to perform with Michael Jackson during the Super Bowl, during the halftime show. And so I had a lot of opportunity to grow as a performer. And this was a huge piece for me in my life, moving into this new embodiment of Anistara. And for those of you who haven't watched a part one, I really encourage you to watch that, because that's the huge chunk, the big piece of how Anistara has come through and how it has evolved into embodying Candace and Anistara together, and how the name was birthed, and the whole story of the evolution of Anistara. So I'm going to cut forward to when I met my partner, Andrew. My beautiful angel Andrew. A lot of people ask, how did you meet your partner? And so this is speaking to women who, or anyone really, who is looking for a partner and feels like they've exhausted all of their options. Um, I was really in a place of I was finishing college, I was graduating soon, it was my birthday soon. I had been with several monogamous relationships leading up to that point, and really just was hanging out with a couple people and felt that there was something more coming, that there was something more that I desired. And I was not in a relationship at that time. I was just kind of uh, I, I was enjoying the company of a couple people, but ultimately I was not in a committed relationship at that moment. And I had almost given up. I had almost given up on finding my life mate, my life partner. I didn't understand where he would come from, or eh, yeah, it just I really got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm okay being alone. I actually really enjoy it. I could do what I want. I am building my own life. I'm graduating school soon. What am I going to do with this degree? And I had a lot of questions and a lot of transition about to occur. And so it was almost perfect timing when I suddenly finally let go of the idea of finding my partner. He arrived. And uh, it was really incredible the way it happened. I was in Santa Barbara and I was flying for a festival, a 3-day festival that I was producing with a couple friends. It was a fundraiser for Alex and Allison Gray and the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors. And we called it Reflections. And it was Memorial Day weekend, 2003. Yes. And I went to Santa Barbara on a friend's biodiesel bus to share the event, the upcoming event. It's like 2 weeks out from the event. And so I walk into this party that had just ended, and I see him across the way. And he's beautiful, and he's tall and blonde and light eyes, and he's wearing an angel costume. And he had handmade for Burning Man, and it had tube socks hanging off of it here, and just like open chested, and he had his whole head shaved except for 2 pieces of hair that were in the shape of devil horns. Anyhow, I approached him and attempted to give him a flyer, and he's like, "Look, I live in Oregon. I'm not going to be here around this time." And the woman he was hanging out with kind of pulled on his skirt. Literally, he was wearing a skirt. And said, he's like, I have to go. And so later that night, I'm at the after party at my friend Raphael's house. And the DJ basically said, "This is my last song." I had been in the yard fire dancing and just enjoying myself. And I said, "Okay, it's his last song. I'm going to go down into the basement and check out where he's been playing." So I went down in the basement and I came around the corner, and there he was, laying on a mattress sleeping, this angel. And so I walked over to him and I knelt next to him and I started shaking him and I said, "Little angel, wake up. Little angel, you've fallen, but you're totally safe. You're right here with me." And he fluttered his eyes open and was like, "Where have you been? I haven't seen you in so long." And it was just total recognition, total soul recognition. It was the right time, right moment, right place for us to like, oh, okay, we know one another. We have been through this. We have had lifetimes together. We've committed to each other in ways in the past that we've learned since then. And that instant recognition was just so heart-opening and beautiful and inspiring. And so within 5 minutes, we were kissing. Within 10 minutes, I was telling him I'm going to take him home to LA with me. And he worked it out with his friends. And I put him on that biodiesel bus. And we went to the beach in Santa Barbara where we made a beautiful breakfast with some friends. And then we started riding down to LA. And I said, look, I want to share something with you. And I pulled out my journal. I had a psychic reading about 3 months earlier with my dear friend Richard Wynn. And essentially it said, the relationships you're in no longer serve you. You're going to find somebody new. He's tall, he's blonde, he has light eyes. He looks like an angel. And so Andrew's like, what? And then literally the next line said, his name is Andy or Andrew. Right? And so I was floored by this, and he was floored by this. And of course, there was more to what Richard predicted. And a huge part of it was, you're going to leave LA, you're going to move to Northern California, you're going to build a family, and all these things. And so thank you, Richard, for that prediction. And we've had a few readings with him since. And I share this with you because so many of us are seeking for something outside of ourselves, that we feel like if we find a partner to make us whole, then everything will be okay. And this is not the case. I had to really get to a place of, I'm whole. I'm whole as I am. I'm perfect, loving, compassionate, and whole just as I am. And that's the frequency and the vibration that brought in my partner. And so I'm here to share with all of you that it is possible to find love, to find partnership, to find that person that you know that you have been connected to for lifetimes, if you haven't found them. And if you have found them and that initial spark has disappeared, come back to the whole. When you're whole, when you feel like you've done a lot of work and you're in a peaceful, loving place within yourself, rather than seeking it outside of yourself, then you attract what it is that you want. And so the other piece to that is, when Andrew and I met, he was living in Oregon, I was living in LA, and we decided that we were going to go back to our respective homes and complete our lives as individuals and come to closure. I put in my my leaving the home, and starting to sell some of my belongings. And when we would come back together, which incidentally was at Burning Man, that from there we would move forward with our life together. And when we were leaving Burning Man, we literally had $1 to our name. It took everything to get there. And he had built an art car, and he was wearing these beautiful ram's horns that somebody liked, and he sold the ram's horns off of his head to have gas money to drive the art car back to Oregon, back to Eugene, where he was at. And as we were leaving, certain friends gave us food, bread, peanut butter, whatever it was. We were taking anything at that point to go to Oregon and have food because he had a job there to make some money. Well, we went, he made some money. We drove down to LA, where I sold the remaining of my belongings, put a few things in storage, and then started our life together. And we just got in my truck and decided to drive and go wherever the wind took us. And so we just kept following the signs and the synchronicities. We kept following those signs and synchronicities and let them guide us. We ended up in Ojai. We ended up in Santa Barbara. And eventually we ended up in Northern California, which is where we live now. And I share this with you as well because we went from having $1 together to where we're at now. And here it is. We've been together 18 years now. And in those 18 years, we have built a life together. We have a beautiful son. We have 3 pieces of property. We have people that we care for. We have community that depend on us. And it all came from the belief that we are happy and whole as individuals, first and foremost, and then in partnership, what we could create together by following the signs and the synchronicities. We can manifest or will manifest whatever it is we choose in our life. And so there's been a lot of lessons along the way on how that happens. And I feel like that will be a whole nother video to share with you. The other piece I wanted to share with you was around the birth of my son. And so, one second. Andrew and I have always appreciated and loved the number 1111 in our life. And so 13 years ago, we started creating an 1111 gathering in our home where we would have people come and we had a beautiful potluck, and then we would create a ceremony space and call in the directions, call in our ancestors and our guides. And then each of us got to put our prayer for ourselves, our family, our community, and the world into this galactivated circle and send those prayers up. And when we're in a group like this, those prayers are amplified. They just multiply. And so, as with any sacred circle, whether it's a church or whatever it is, that your wishes and your intentions are amplified when it's within the group environment, because collectively, so many of us want so much of the same things, just to be in peace and be in love and have compassion and acceptance in our life, grace and ease. And so part of our prayer was to purchase the home that we were living in, and we did. And then several years later, we started putting in our prayer that we wanted to have a child. And each year, I think it was about 3 years that we would put the prayer in. One year, I did get pregnant, and I was very excited, and we had just shared it with our friends. It was within the 3-month period. And what was heartbreaking was I ended up having a miscarriage. And so we just stopped for a minute. We're like, okay, let's take a break. You know, December 21st, 2012 is coming. We have no idea what that's going to mean. The end of the Mayan calendar, like things could really shift in our life. Let's just wait till after that date to call in baby, to call in the child. And so we waited. And I'll tell you what, January 1st, 2013, we cleaned the house. We set the intention. We literally built an altar. And then we sat by the fire with our journals and we wrote out what it is that we wanted in a child. This is what they would feel like energetically. This is what they would look like. This is what their personality and characteristic traits would be. And essentially put in our order with the universe. It took 1 year and 8 months for him to come through. But when he did, first of all, we didn't know it was a boy until he was born. When he did, we were like, wow, this is exactly what we ordered. And so with great intention and great attention to detail, we received what it is that we desired. And so again, this is a whole nother lesson on manifestation and what we could create in our lives. Write it out, like write your order to the universe. It's incredible how it unfolds. And then sometimes it doesn't always turn out the way that you think, too. For instance, I had a beautiful pregnancy. I was never sick. It was absolutely amazing. I really just felt embodied. I really felt like just embodying that mother energy, that creator energy. It was so juicy and beautiful. And I really enjoyed my pregnancy. It wasn't challenging for me until I was so big that my back hurt. And I was getting body work and all the things. And we started creating our at home birth playground. We had a doula, we had a midwife. We were very excited to create our home birthing experience with the tub, with all the things. And about 3 months before I went into labor, the state of California changed the law. And the law said if you do not go into labor within 2 weeks of your due date, you're forced by law to go to the hospital and induce, meaning, take something to start the labor. And first of all, I was like, I have no control over when my child, like he and we have a relationship, an energetic relationship. When that child is ready, they'll come. I don't want to force it. And yet, when it came down to it, that's what happened. Is it got to the point where I was 2 weeks from I'm sorry, 2 weeks after my due date, which by the way, to me, it's not like so black and white. Like every person has their own cycle, and who's to say when that child's supposed to be born? Point is the night before that 2 week mark, I decided to really drop in with my partner, with Andrew, with the child spirit. I started speaking to the baby and asking what it is. What do you think we should do? And they said, drink the castor oil. And so I drank the castor oil to help induce the labor at home. Well, I woke up the next morning and I was in full labor, like not even the beginnings of it. It's just like full labor, contractions or waves every 3 minutes, and went through that process. And about 18 hours later, I had only opened 1 centimeter. And it just continued like that. It was many, many hours, and then it was just like a half a centimeter. Eventually, it got to the point where my midwife and I and our doula really spoke. And I said, I need to rest. Like it's been almost 36 hours at this point, and I just need to rest. And so I took a little tincture, tried to rest at home. And after a few more hours, decided that we needed to go to the hospital so that I could actually have like a morphine drip and just reduce the pain enough to actually rest. And so we did that. And then, of course, once we were there, it was like that whole cascade of what can happen when you go to the hospital happens. We did everything we could to have a vaginal birth, and ultimately it came down to they popped the bag. They did all these different, I took the Pitocin, like did all these different things to really try and open further. And the child and I just weren't ready to open yet. Big lesson for me in surrender. Big lesson in, look, you can ask for what you want, and you can have a plan for what could happen. Because I had a birth plan for at home. I had a birth plan for, vaginal at the hospital, and I had a birth plan for cesarean. And I had it all written out and everything. And so I set the biggest intention, and at least I had the plans. And so when it finally came down to the decision that 3.5 days later, so 76 hours in labor, we had to make the choice to go into surgery. It broke my heart. This is not what I wanted. This is not what I wanted. This is not what Andrew wanted. I really believe that if we were given the time and the spaciousness instead of being forced, that we could have birthed naturally. And that was a big lesson for me in so many different realms and levels. But the biggest one was just surrendering and letting go of, like, no matter what, on the other end, I'm going to have a baby. No matter what happens and how he gets here, he's going to be here and we're both going to be healthy. And if I had gone through this experience 100 years earlier, both of us could have died. And so in that moment, I was so grateful for Western medicine. And my doula and my midwife literally just, they advocated for me in such a big way. And they talked to the doctors, they talked to the nurses, they told them my birth plan. My cesarean birth plan was that my husband, my midwife, and my doula was in the surgery room with me, and that I wanted to play my own music. When he was born, I wanted him put directly onto my chest. I wanted him to be born lotus. I wanted his umbilical cord to stay connected to him until he got all of his fluids into his body, and then we would remove it. And so I had a lot of requests that were very different than they've had before. And they compiled the team that would allow me to do that. And it was beautiful. I asked them to tell me to push when they were pulling him out. I asked them to not tell me. I didn't want to hear a stranger tell me if I had a boy or girl. I wanted my partner. I wanted Andrew to tell me if I had a boy or girl. And the first voice that the child hears when it comes out of the womb is imprinted in them. And so it was really important to me that everyone in the room was quiet the moment that child took its first breath. And Andrew looked down at me and said, "We have a son. We have a son. We have a beautiful son." And he had 10 fingers and 10 toes, and I was so grateful. I share this with you because, first of all, I feel like I've never shared this story. He's almost 7 now. I feel like women don't have the opportunity to share their stories, to share the grief that we go through when we have a miscarriage, the grief that we go through when our birth doesn't go the way that we had hoped. And also knowing in divine order that that's how he needed to be born. That's his story of how he entered the world. I'm just like a footnote. And it's also a reminder that we can envision all that we want, and it's important to have a plan and to think of all the different outcomes of something and be ready for them. And so, especially in the world that we're living in right now, being ready for what could happen, not focusing on that because we don't want to create it. But it's important to be prepared. And as a mother, as a fellow human citizen, we're all about to birth the next chapter, the next incarnation of humanity in our awakening. And so, what's the plan? What's the plan, man? Community. Community is a huge part of it. Returning back to Mother Earth, listening to her on a deep level and what she needs, and treading lightly, making the softest footprints that we can make. Growing our own food, having clean water and air. All of this is important, not just for Mother Gaia, but for us, for our great grandchildren. And so, this is what came out. I wasn't sure exactly what this next part of the story was going to be. I know that it skipped around in the timeline a little bit, but I felt like each piece had its own understanding, its own lesson or um, inspiration, whatever it is. And so, for those of you who feel called to watch part one, if you haven't yet, please do so. And let me know. Let me know how this touched you. If you have any questions at all, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram. It's Anistara 1111 or 1111 Unified. Join our community network where we can have these discussions, where we can really start tuning into what does it mean to be aligned with 1111 synchronicities and signs in our lives. How do we manifest and create things together as a community? For those of you who really want to reach out to me with your personal stories, so many of you did after part one. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your beautiful stories of awakening. Just go ahead and write me, Anastar1111 at Yahoo. I would love to hear from you. You can comment below on the video as well, and just let us know. Was there anything that inspired you or touched you in any way? I'm also here to support you, awakening women. I just really enjoy speaking with all of you. I had a beautiful call yesterday. You could book a discovery call with me at honestara.com, and we could just talk about where you are in your awakening process and how I might be able to support you through it, how we could support one another. So, blessed family, thank you for your ears. I love you so much, and I hope you're creating a beautiful day.